Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Today I have the opportunity to introduce you to Jeni, and we talk about all kinds of things, including a cross-country move partway through the fertility journey. We talk about co-parenting and blended families and how the dynamics of parents and step-parents within the same house can unfold. It's just a deep and robust conversation you do not want to miss. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited today to speak with Jeni, who is going to tell us all about who they are and the members of their family. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sam. So my name is Dr. Jeni Wahlig, and I am currently in a blended family with my bio kid, my soulmate, Cal, who's a trans man, and his three children. We've got a 10-year-old, 8-year-old twins, and then, of course, my bio kid, who is 6.5. And now we've got, as a blended family, our system also includes our former spouses and their people as well.
That's a big family, and 4 kids between 6 and 10 is a busy household, I suspect.
So much. It's a busy household and it's a loud household.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So-
I bet. I
Mhm.
bet. So set this up for me. Your child is 6 years old.
Mhm.
It's a ways back when you decided to create your family, but how did you come to the decision when did you know you wanted to be a parent, and how did you get that process started?
Well, it was an interesting journey for me because I think I knew I wanted to be a parent when I was really little. I loved playing with my younger, my baby cousins, and my mom had had all three of her kids by the time she was 23. And so that was what I grew up thinking, I wanted too, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm.
wanted to be a young mom, so I had all the energy. And then when I was 14, I got diagnosed with PCOS. And the
Okay.
doctor told me that it was possible that I might struggle to have kids, to get pregnant. And my 14-year-old brain heard that as you're not going to be able to have kids. And so I grieved as a young person, and there's a part of me still that kind of that wanted it, and a part of me that was like, well, that's not possible.
Mhm.
And so that belief got perpetuated as I was going through my teenage years, as a not yet aware of my queerness, having sex with cishet guys, and eventually I actually married my high school sweetheart when I was only 20 years old, because remember, I'm supposed to have babies by the time I'm 23. Um,
Right. Let's get this clock going.
yeah, like we got
Yeah.
um and so we were together for about 7 years, and I never got pregnant. We had unprotected sex. I never got pregnant. So I was sure that my body was broken and it was just never going to happen. He and I got divorced though because I realized that I was queer. At the time, my queer journey is an unfolding of multiple identities, but I was like, well, I must be gay because I want to be with women. So,
Mhm.
um, then it was like, definitely never going to have kids because now I don't even have access to sperm. And
Right. Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Um, so I felt like I had really given up on that dream for many years. And fast forward about 10 or so years, and I was engaged to um, a really wonderful woman who would eventually become my wife. And we were visiting my sister, and my sister, who also has PCOS, was pregnant. And there was this moment where I like was admiring her beautiful little baby belly and the life growing inside, and I was like, screw it. It's got to be possible for me. I'm gonna find a way. And there was this like this conviction, right? This
Hmm.
decision that I'm gonna have my own child. I'm gonna carry a baby in my body. I'm gonna realize this dream no matter what it takes. So I was probably um 28, 27 years old at the time. And that was when I like really decided I was going to start taking steps to create my own family. Um, but then it was a whole journey from there to try to
Hmm.
actually make that happen.
Yeah. It's funny because I was just talking about this yesterday with a friend of mine who's a naturopath, and I wonder if PCOS is more prevalent now or if people are acknowledging it more now. But certainly we're seeing more and more individuals, whether they're cishet or queer, who
Hmm.
struggle to conceive.
Hmm.
And that it does. It's one of many layers, especially within the queer community, that just makes you feel like, okay, this dream isn't going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
because as you
Yep.
say, once you come out, this dream you've had of being a parent since you were a child
Hmm.
really wavers because we don't know that it's really going to actually be possible because we're missing something. And
Absolutely.
it's heartbreaking, right? So
Yeah.
it's just grief journey after grief journey after grief
Hmm.
journey.
Hmm.
So you've made this decision. Okay, we're going to figure it out. What did you do next?
So, well, we started taking steps, my wife and I. We had, I mean, had lots of conversations about how we wanted to do it and what it would take and how we were going to afford it because we were not making a lot of money.
Hmm.
And and we decided to take out a care credit loan
Hmm.
to help finance the process. Found, like went through the donor lists, decided that we were going to try a donor. I started metformin, so spoke to my doctor about how I could set myself up for success, right? That was um, uh, not a fun adjustment journey to that medication, but eventually we got to the point where we had all of those kind of ducks in a row, and um, we were actively looking at for the right time to inseminate. We were going to do intrauterine insemination.
Hmm.
And we were living in New Hampshire at the time, in the United States. And the nearest hospital where they could do this was like an hour away. So because of my PCOS, I had to go in um, like several times a month for them to monitor my ovaries to
Hmm.
see if I was producing enough viable eggs and to kind of predict when I was likely going to ovulate. And it was really a pain in the butt to have to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but we did, and we did it 3 times, and it didn't, and each time it didn't work. Um, and every time it didn't work, it was again like it felt like more evidence, right? That my body is broken. This just isn't going to happen for me. We were running out of money. We were running out
Hmm.
of sperm. Um, And so we put a pause on it for a while. I was actually finishing my PhD, and we had decided to move out to the West Coast, to the Seattle area in the United States, um, which is in part because I had since come out as polyamorous and reconnected with Calvin, who I'm currently with. Um, and so my wife and I moved out here. And Our relationship was going through lots of transitions. It was pretty rocky at the time, but we still both knew we wanted to try to have a baby.
Hmm.
Um, and also both knew that we would be really good co-parents. And so even if the marriage didn't work out, we still wanted to have a baby together. And
Hmm.
and it was like, I think too, as a queer person, the idea of trying to start over, um, and I was like 34 by that point. So I
Hmm.
was getting to be, what do they call it, in the medical community?
Geriatric.
Geriatric, that's the
Doesn't
word.
that feel
Feels
good? Doesn't
so
that just feel
good.
good,
Yes.
swift kick in the stomach for you?
Yes.
Yikes.
Thank you for telling my body it was like nearly useless in terms of conceiving a child right now. Um, so like I was like, well, Cal had already had three babies with his wife, and he was not going to have another baby with me. And anyway, um, so we continued to take steps down that road, hoping we could also work on the marriage. Um, and what ended up actually happening was I I was doing some like spiritual work within myself, and I ended up connecting with somebody who does Reiki sessions. I'd never had a Reiki session, but she was a friend of a friend, so I was like, why not? And so she offered to do a Reiki session with me, and what she shared was that um I needed to like heal the belief within myself that I wasn't going to be able to have babies
Hmm.
in order to create space in my body where a baby could actually grow. Um, and so that like I'm a pretty woo-y person. And so I took that to heart and
Hmm.
began kind of an internal journey of releasing that belief and practicing the visualization and the excitement and like the talking about when it was going to happen and just kind of surrendering and trusting that it would somehow,
Right.
which was really scary after so many years of believing that it wouldn't and after
Hmm.
trying and investing in myself and my body and finding that it didn't.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but I really wanted to have that baby. And so I'm like, if this is going to work, then I'm going to give it a chance. And I really went in it wholeheartedly. Um, And we were, of course, meeting with a new fertility doctor out here who recommended we try a different fertility medication that was very, very expensive. And miraculously, it worked out that like a person that my wife was now dating n- had a previous employer who had been going through IVF using the same medication that we were doing, didn't need it anymore, and offered to give it to us for free.
Wow.
It was like $1,500 per shot, which at the time was really
Oh my
difficult
gosh.
to afford.
Yeah, no kidding. For anybody. That's
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah. Well,
gosh.
and just like the cost of living moving from little New Hampshire to frickin' Seattle, like we were
Hmm.
struggling to keep our heads above water. And so this was like, it's impossible, and we want to have a baby.
Right.
So we got the medication for free, and then the next time that I did an insemination, so this was our fourth try, our first try with the new fertility meds and the new fertility doctor, I got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. It
That's
was like it was like
amazing.
a it was like a mir- it was like a miracle, but it was also like evidence for me of like the universe supporting this journey, uh,
Hmm.
and the power of my own like commitment and conviction and decision that this was possible for me. Because I really think for me I really believe that that was a part of what allowed me to get pregnant, was that
Right.
it didn't work.
And and I think that that's a piece that a lot of people don't actually investigate for themselves is doing the personal work.
Hmm.
Especially Perhaps more so with our community than with any other community, because it does require 99% of the time, it requires assistance from someone else outside of us.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
pregnancy, conception, creating a family feels very scientific. And so if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to apply so much science, then why do I need to do the emotional work, the mental work, the woo woo, as the out
Yeah.
there stuff? Why do I need to speak to a trauma counselor to
Mm-hmm.
process my life to this point so that I can create a family? But we don't realize that that's all blockages we're putting in our body, which is not to say that everyone needs to do this or they will never get pregnant. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
speaking for anyone else, but it does make a lot of sense that we carry so much. Our body is made up of energy. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we don't let that energy flow, it can't
Mm-hmm.
do the work we want it to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what. So you you've moved across the country, you've tried different doctors and fertility clinics and treatments. You mentioned that you used a sperm bank.
Mm-hmm.
So way back when you're first deciding, how do you decide or how did you decide whether or not to use a known donor or go to a fertility clinic? And then in that case, did you choose to do an open ID donor or is this an anonymous donor? Oh, not
Mm-hmm.
that I think really any donor these days is anonymous with all of
Right.
the ways of tracking them down, social media, DNA testing, all the things. But how did you make those kinds of decisions?
Yeah. So, um, there wasn't anybody in our life who we would have known and trusted well enough to be a known donor.
Hmm.
And I think my wife had some fears around how that could possibly go bad if we took the risk.
Right.
Um,
Understandable.
and as the non-carrying parent, who then, in a lot of places in the world d doesn't have the same kind of rights and such, was really wanted to err on the side of caution. And
Sure.
so it was pretty quick that we took that table off, or that potential path off the table. So when it came to the open known or the open donor or the anonymous donor, I think there was a leaning toward anonymous because of my wife's concerns
Yep.
and really wanting to just like be the other parent and not have another person in the picture where our kiddo could say, but that's also my parent.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't particularly share that concern. And it's probably connected to my polyamorous identity and just part of how I operate. But I was of the mind that like the more the merrier, who love my kid, and that even if we knew who the donor was, like you're the other parent. Our kid's gonna know that. There's no way that they don't know that because you're the one who's been there, who they
Hmm.
lived with, who they've known as their Mada. Um, ultimately, the decision actually was made because of finances, to be totally honest. The conversation was never, I think, intentionally or consciously arrived at a decision between us because the open donors were a lot more expensive and we,
Right.
couldn't afford that. So it was like, well, sorry, kid, if you ever want to know who that person is or track down that like lineage or your other
Hmm.
relatives on that genetic line, you're gonna have to do it the hard way because
Hmm.
we got to keep that door closed. And that's okay. Like I was okay with that. My wife was okay with that. I think our kiddo's pretty okay with that. Although they're still too young to be asking a lot of questions. So we'll see how it
Fair.
unfolds.
Although I can say in our house, my stepdaughter has no interest and she's 18 and
I believe it. Hmm.
just she says, I have four parents who love me. I don't need anybody else.
Yeah.
There has been no issues that have come up health-wise or otherwise.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think it's part of it is just knowing that she's surrounded in love and so doesn't feel like she needs to add to that circle. But
That's it. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And that's the most important thing. That's all we want all of our kids to feel, right? Is just loved and
Absolutely.
supported all the way along the journey.
Yep.
So you've now had the conception happen. How was your
Mhm.
pregnancy and birth and everything else? Everything go smoothly for you, or were you able to have it unfold the way you had dreamed of it?
Oh my gosh, I loved being pregnant.
Oh, good,
If
good.
kids weren't so much work, I would have wanted to get pregnant again. But then by the time Bodhi, my kiddo, was born, um, I was living more often with Cal and his three kids. And so like four kids was a lot.
It is a
Four
lot.
kids was so much. And at that time, right, they were what, like three, one, and a newborn. And so it was like I can't get pregnant again. But I
Yeah.
loved being pregnant. It was magical for me. I was really blessed in that the pregnancy was easy. I
Oh,
didn't
good.
have morning sickness. I was not uncomfortable in my body. I felt more beautiful than I'd ever felt in my life. I was in love with my body. I was in love with like this experience. Um, and and so it was just really joyful. The one thing I think that like I struggled with the most during the pregnancy was that I was also trying to help co-parent at that point three other littles,
Mm,
two babies who were still in cribs and diapers and bottles, and a toddler. And so there were parts of me that grieved that, I think when you have other kids in your family, um, that I didn't get to really be present with this experience. This my,
hmm
like my first baby, my only
hmm
pregnancy experience, but like I'm now also co-parenting
hmm
other littles, and so that was an interesting and unexpected part of my journey into family creation. That was not easy, um, but the birth, I did not have a lot of preferences around how the birth went. I just wanted my baby to be healthy
hmm
and me to survive.
Right. Fair enough.
I wasn't particularly scared of it, but I wasn't, I also didn't want to experience the intensity of giving a natural birth.
Hmm
I'm not, I'm disinclined toward pain as much as that might have been a beautiful experience.
Sure.
That wasn't my choice or preference. So I knew going in that I was going to go the standard medical route. I knew that I was, um, gonna get an epidural so that I could experience the birth process in less pain.
hmm
And um, and so I felt like comfortable going into the birth process. Bodhi was a week late, so they scheduled me for um, induction. So I knew when the day was. I knew like I could prepare emotionally, mentally, um, but then it didn't unfold. It took 25 hours.
hmm
I was very hungry.
Yes.
They don't let you eat
Yes.
after you have your epidural. Um, and and it just like I was not dilating. It was moving along really, really, really
Mm.
slowly. They had already broken my water, and so there was a higher level of risk for the baby. Um, and eventually, the Was starting to get into distress.
Mhm.
And so they needed me to take me back for an emergency C-section. Um, and I was like, I was really in a I don't care place, like just make
Yep,
sure my baby's okay.
exactly. Exactly.
Um, and and so yeah, so I gave birth via C-section to
Hmm.
my baby. Apparently there was some challenges getting everything closed back up. I was doing some
Oh,
extra
okay.
things, so it took some extra time, but I was unaware of this because after the baby was out, I passed out. I was just done
Yeah.
for a bit until I got put back into the room with my people. Um, but they were here and they were
Mhm.
healthy and they were a strange little alien. Um, and it was a dream come true.
Excellent. And it happened the way that it was meant to happen, that needed
Hmm.
to happen for all of you.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know about Baby Ready because you're listening to this podcast, so you know that we are all about queer family planning and helping you have the family of your dreams. But did you know that we don't abandon you once your baby arrives? We actually offer parenting coaching as well, and that's not just for the newborn phase, although we are there for that, but it's through toddlerhood and young children, tweens, and even through the teen years. When you need someone unbiased to lend an ear so that they can hear where your struggles truly are and help you come up with a path and a plan that feels truly right for you and your individual family, don't hesitate to reach out. We are always happy to be there for you. Visit us at www.babyready.info for more information. So, how have you had the co-parenting journey unfold? Because it's now, as you say, there's lots of members of the family involved. You've got
Hmm.
kids, you've got Cal, you've got your ex-wife. Like there's lots of people involved. How does this all unfold for you?
In learning phases, I think there was a chapter in the beginning where everything felt really hard and overwhelming. You know,
Hmm.
my I wasn't living with my wife anymore, but we were still trying to be in relationship. So I felt like I was kind of living between two homes.
Hmm.
And that was a strange transition. It was weird to not always have my baby with me because sometimes Stephanie would have the kiddo and but it was my days to be at Cal's. So it was gosh, it just felt like such a whirlwind. I was tired all the time, but that's the beginning of parenthood anyways.
Sure.
But as it unfolded, I kind of stepped into the role of parent to Cal's kiddos and didn't really think of our family as a blended family. They were just all my kids. Um,
Mm.
Cal had gotten a divorce and he had, you know, primary custody of his kids. So the kids were around all the time. And Cal needed to work and I was on maternity leave. So I took care of the kids and they became my babies.
Hmm.
And as they've grown, as our co-parenting with the former spouses, my wife and I eventually got divorced, um, like changed the family dynamic kind of did too. There got to a point where um developmentally Cal's kids started noticing differences between what my kid Bodhi got to have in their life because of their relationship with their other parent, because of having a different type of relationship with
Mm.
me. Um, and and their parent not um not necessarily feeling good about me being in their life. That's a whole other story. But so there's
Sure.
tension in the
Yep.
parenting dynamic between Cal and his ex-wife, and so that they would get feedback from their mom about me. They call me their PJ, parent Jenny. Um, and so there then in this journey, developmentally, there started to be a time where I would get pushback from the kids around like not being their parent, not needing to listen to me, which then had to unfold into some changes in the dynamic between me and Cal, where I needed him to step into more of the role that I had been playing within our dynamic, which was kind of organizing and
Hmm.
and disciplining and almost primary parenting, the standard non-conscious mom role, right? Where
Hmm. Hmm.
we're kind of trying to do all the things. And I was like, well, Dad, now I have kind of transitioned more into step parent. I need you to be primary parent with your kids. Obviously, they're still my kids to my heart, but there needs to be a different way of engaging with them.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we're at now, and it's definitely helped to improve things, but it's required like continuing to look at what's working and what's not working. I think, our
Yes.
kids have taught us, and we're a neurodiverse family. One of our kids has ADHD, as does Cal, and another kid is got some sensory processing stuff. And so but there's extra layers of learning how
Hmm.
to parent in a neurodiverse household.
Hmm.
And so there was lots of nights where I felt like the shittiest parent in the world and would cry about how I just lost my nuggets and yelled and thought that I would never yell like that at little people. And but that became an opportunity for me to really grow and look at what was working and what wasn't, and learn
Hmm.
how not to do that, learn what my own triggers were, learn how to how to love um, kids who were my kids but not my kids,
Hmm.
and balance like power differentials there.
Hmm.
So there's just been so much learning. And I think that knowing that this is a journey that's going to keep unfolding, that I'm going to have to keep learning and flexing and leveling up who I am as a
Hmm.
person, a parent, and a partner, um, that mindset has really helped the unfolding keep going upward instead of being like struggle after struggle after struggle.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, it is because just when you think that you're starting to get into the swing of
Oh
things,
yeah, they
they
change.
mature another level, which means now you need to mature to match their level of mature. It's constantly an evolution.
Oh
It
yeah.
really is. But it's exciting because as they grow and mature, you're seeing a development more of the person that they really are under everything else too, which is
Yeah,
such a fun time.
I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. We talked about finances very briefly, skirted around the conversation a little bit, but it's not cheap to have a baby. It's not cheap to create our families. Do you have a ballpark idea of how much you and Stephanie ended up having to spend altogether, even though you were gifted this one series of
Yeah.
medication, how much you ended up having to spend to be able to have the child that you were both gifted with?
hmm Ballpark, it was probably $8,000 or so.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not, I mean, probably closer to 10 when you include what you have to pay the hospital after you actually have the baby, because let's not
Mm.
get on that soapbox. Um, but but
Yeah.
yeah, it was an endeavor that we um had to pay off, right? Like
Yeah.
we went into debt for and just made payments on until Like, oh, like we
Yeah.
made this big purchase in our life. Oh, we're just trying to freaking create a child. It's
Yes.
wild. But yeah.
It, and that's, I think, a part of why I talk about the finances, because as crass as it can sound to talk about money, I think that it's necessary. I think that it's necessary for a variety of reasons. One, I think people need to be aware that they're going to have to pay out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, $8,000 to me would be paralyzing. But at the same time, I know people who've spent 150 to $200,000 to have a
Yes.
child,
Yeah.
because if you don't have a uterus, then you have to hire someone's uterus, you have to hire someone's eggs, you have to, so it can be prohibitive,
Mm-hmm.
without there being another word to describe it. But
Mm-hmm.
it feels so elitist, and it shouldn't be. We should be able to have our babies. Our insurance companies should be more excited about helping
Oh my
support
gosh.
us in creating our
Seriously.
families. People need to speak to their employers and their HR departments, and
Mm-hmm.
because for sometimes, not always, I get this, but sometimes some things like this aren't put into an insurance package because the people who are creating the insurance package don't think, because they're cisgendered, heterosexual themselves, they already have their kids, they didn't have an issue, perhaps, that they don't think of it because it's not been their reality.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that they aren't excited to do it for someone else, but if nobody has said to them, could we think about adding this to our package?
Sure.
They don't know to do that because it's just not been where they've been in their life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So everybody needs to advocate.
Yes.
Even if you're past having children, but you have the chance to have a conversation with an HR department about insurance packages, I think that this is all stuff that people need to be able to. And there are more and more organizations now that are helping to fund and things like that, but those are new.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was around even 5 or 6 years ago. There was
Yep.
almost nothing available.
Yep.
And
True story.
it's prohibitive.
Yeah.
It's prohibitive. And we just want to have babies.
I know. It's like a human right. It's like create a family.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
so
a
true.
bummer.
Are there any words of caution that you would share with listeners about things that you experienced on your journey that you would encourage them to know about beforehand, or ways to advocate for themselves to help them have a more positive experience, or anything that you can think of?
You know, the only thing that's coming up for me to say is just to do your inner work along this journey, because it's stressful, it's scary, it's full of unknowns, it's full of grief, as you mentioned, Sam, right? Like um energetically, it takes such a leap of faith, such an investment of self and soul, for us as queer folk in particular to go down this path. Um, that I think the greatest thing we can do for ourselves, and for me, of course, to believe for our bodies and for the invitation of a new soul into our bodies, is be in a powerful place internally, right? In
Yeah.
a place where there's where we know joy, where we can connect to hope, where we can be in surrender to the unfolding, because like the anxiety, the fear, the stress, like those are not, they're not going to feel good. They're going to make this journey harder than the hard it
Mhm.
already is, right? Like there's a level of hard it already is, but then
Yeah.
there's another layer of hard when our response to hard is like stress and overwhelm and anxiety and fear and depression and struggle. So
Right.
like the I just think like in oh, it's not usually part of the baby story, the baby creation story, right? To have to do this inner inner training.
Yeah.
But I think that if you do and you intend, like, okay, I'm going to do this on a scientific level, and I'm going to do this on a mental health level, and I'm going to do this on a spiritual level, and I'm going to do this on a personal love journey,
Hmm.
um, that that no matter how the journey unfolds, it's going to be a better one.
Yeah. And I think to this, it's important to add the reality that yes, this takes time. And so this may make your process take a little longer.
Hmm.
And that's the challenge, right? By the time we have the sperm, we have the fertility clinic, we have the financial resources set in place,
Hmm.
we're afraid of slowing things down because 9 times out of 10, we're well into our 30s, if not towards 40s.
Hmm.
People are talking in our ear constantly about how old we are and how
Yeah.
hard this is going to be to get eggs that are viable, to be have the energy to carry all the blah 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 that people keep throwing at us. But oftentimes, if we don't do that work, it's not going to make the journey any shorter or any faster for us. So taking that time to do the work is worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
But it's hard to be patient.
Oh
It's so
gosh.
hard to be patient.
Yes.
Easy to say on the other side, right? I'm
Huh?
like over 20 years past birthing. So it's easy for me to say have patience, but
Hmm.
it's true. That the patience that is so hard to come by is really necessary through the process.
Yeah.
Before I let you go and before I ask you what your favorite part of parenting is, I want you to just briefly, could you touch on you are a doctor, you have your PhD. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how people might be able to get in touch with you should they need some support in the
Yeah.
in the way that you offer it?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So, yeah, I have a PhD in couple and family therapy. And right now, I'm actually not doing therapy. I've transitioned into relationship coaching, education, and mentorship support alongside Cal because our relationship story and how we figured out how to have the really easy and fun and solid relationship that we have after divorces and 4 kids and transition and like all
And
kinds
all
of
the things.
all the things
Yeah.
has been really life-changing for us. And so we've created a method, we call it the Be the One method for supporting either individuals or couples who are in committed relationships to become empowered to create the improvements and changes in their relationships that they want to see happen, even if their partner is not doing that work alongside them. So we I mean my joy is relationships and I want to see everybody figure it out because it our relationships are everywhere. It's right. It's our relationship with ourselves. It's our relationship with our partner. It's our relationship with our kids.
Hmm.
And and when you can figure out how to do relationships in a way that feels like authentic and safe and easy and fun and make that whole journey better for your life, it really affects every other aspect of our life. So that's what we're all about is teaching people, helping people, mentoring people along that journey so that they can have relationships that are really fulfilling and delightful. So if anybody is listening and hears that and is like, I want that for my life too, please reach out to me. You can find me and Cal on Facebook is where we show up mostly on social media at Jeni.Wahlig for myself. Or come visit us at our website, www.powerfullove.com. One L, powerful and love, share the L. Um, and we've got a lot of really great resources and ways of working with people, including our first couples retreat, which is coming up in spring, which we're super excited about.
Neat. Cool.
Um, so yeah, so that's me and that's us and the work that we're doing in the world.
Love it. Excellent. All of that information will be in the show notes. So listeners can find that if they didn't get a chance to grab a pen fast enough, or they're driving,
Yes.
please don't try and drive and write all this down at the same time. But it will be in the show notes, and you can find that on my website. tell me before I let you go, what is your absolute favorite part of parenting?
My absolute favorite part of parenting is snuggles.
Yes,
It's freaking snuggles.
so
Cal's
true.
kids are so good at snuggling, and it's just I just like want to like let's just stay here. You don't need
Mhm.
anything for the rest of the day, right? Like I don't care what age they are, just tell me you don't ask me for snacks. I don't want to
Just
play
give me
pretend
snuggles.
right now. Just keep snuggling me. It's so precious.
Yeah.
My kiddo as is felt like for most of their life felt like snuggling with a blender. It just was like they could not sit
Not sit
still.
still.
Yes, I mean, when they were an infant, sure, I could snuggle them a little bit, but even then, it was like I was almost excited when they got sick because they would like sit still. Like I could hold,
Right.
they would fall asleep in my arms. Aside from that,
Yes.
now at almost 7, they're finally at a place where they're like asking, Mom, will you come snuggle with me?
Mm.
And it's still not the most comfortable of snuggles, but it's like finally like, oh, okay, now this kid
Hmm.
actually wants to sit with me. Um, but it's just such a sweet moment, and I know they're not going to want to do that forever. And so anytime I get the chance to just be in snuggles with my babies, I just like savor it. It's such a beautiful and like sweet, sweet experience as a parent, and it helps me in those moments to like move away from the stress and the doing and drop into being present with this little spirit that has blessed my life, and like the miracle that they're here and the awe and the wonder that I get to watch this human being become. It's just like, and that, so it's more than just the snuggles, right? It's like the connecting with the the wonder of getting to be a parent.
Yeah. That's and I'll just say I have a 26-year-old who still loves to snuggle. So
Oh,
yeah, lives
I'm
lives
gonna,
on lives closer to the West Coast than to me. So
yeah.
maybe find him and he'll give you snuggles, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. But I did just see him last weekend. He flew home and had lots of snuggles. But my other child that I birthed is happy to hug, but not
Uh-huh.
really a snuggler, and
Yep.
has always been that way. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I'm
don't know. I
hoping, I'm
think
hoping
there you
one of
go.
them at least, one of the four, maybe
Yes.
two.
There you go. There you go. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it. And you shared some beautiful insight that I think other people will really have the opportunity to learn from.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Sam. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.